We have our next project to work on. Just came in the mail today. So let's see what it looks like. Ooh, peanuts, lots of peanuts. It's a lot bigger clock than I thought it was. Smells like mothballs. Part of the reason I got it was it came with this clock shelf. They're hard to find. Very hard to find. Top. Wow, this is a big block. There's the new one. A Waterbury calendar clock. So we are going to set it up, see how it's working. Like I about had to go to the next room to get all of it in the camera. This is a massive clock. It's the Oswego Waterbury calendar clock. It's got the little, kind of like the flames on the little sconces. I really like the case. I've noticed a couple things. These are not level, so the movement is not mounted right. There were a couple of loose screws right here when I pulled it out. And so I have moved them. One of them goes here, but the whole movement is moving. I don't know why you would ship something without the movement mounted, but anyway, we're going to start investigating. Right now it says Wednesday, March 13th. I'm excited. I've been wanting a calendar clock. The Ithaca ones are way out of my price range, so I saw this one with the shelf. The shelf is just wide enough and just deep enough. It's probably about 1 inch deeper than it needs to be, so I can put it pretty much anywhere in the house. I don't know if you can even see that, but yeah, you can see that. Okay. All right, I'm going to just move my shelf, and I want to turn it around and show you the back. We'll scoot a little closer here. This came separate, the bob and the two-ended key. I don't know why there's a two-ended key, because there's nothing to adjust on this movement with the small end. So it's probably a replica. It says India on it. It's not a Waterbury key. Anyway, I'm going to show you around on the back. Now it's in really good shape. It's got all the stuff still intact. The Waterbury Clock Company, the directions for the clock, And then the directions for the calendar, which I'm going to need because I've never had a calendar. And this is calendar number 43. But it doesn't say Oswego on here anywhere as far as the clock model. It probably was up here and it's gone. Kind of like the calendar movement got stuck on there. The clock movement was probably stuck up there. But it's going to be nice. There's a piece of wood missing here to brace this. But it's stable still. So, we're going to take this face off and see what we got. This is a heavy clock. I'm just amazed. I thought it would be the size of another kitchen clock. I don't know why. Like, the face is bigger than a standard kitchen clock, and then, I don't know, I thought it would be more like, I'm just surprised. But anyway, let's start taking it apart and see what we got, because this is about to fall out. I think I will lay it down to take it apart. Okay, well, let's see what's going on. I have some little plastic dishes back here. Yes. Put these screws in here. You get the attached and out. Also loose the whole piece of it. And shit, hang on, figure it out. There's 3 little screws. And then one brass screw for the front face. And screwdriver. There we go. This is the biggest clock I've ever worked on, I think. We'll see what size the movement is. Looks a lot like my water, isn't it? Just good, I think it's parts I got. It's got a zinc fan with the brass edges or gold edges, and this is usually paper on the front. So maybe that's Waterbury clock company USA, but you can buy replacements for that. It's like it's pretty good. Pretty old. Doesn't look like new replacements. Alright, this is not attached at all. That just makes no sense unless someone they got like some paper stuff in the holes around the screws, so I guess the screw holes are stripped and the screws did not stay in for shipping. Alright. No pan, no square washer, so those are the same stars as that. And then I look at other kitchen clocks that have a calendar on the same face as the time. It's just a calendar on the edges. It's the same kind of hand that comes. There's 3 hands on those. They don't have the 37 numbers on those other style calendar clocks. I've got an odd one. I'm just kind of picking up one of this and one of that, so whatever strikes my fancy. Like all y'all probably. And that's a little slot, not a square hole. It's a little slide hole. Alright. And that does not take these out, okay? So this is all paper. One of these is missing. This don't match. I'll like it. Alright, so there are our movements. This only has 3 screws in also. This is 3 forward. This should have been it. This should have been it. Alright. Well, I think I'm just going to take this movement and see what kind of shape it's in. Since it's already loose, I'll put it on stand and try it. I could put the screws in and try where it is. Let's try that. Hang on, I'll put the screws back in. People have different things they like to use to fill in holes that have been stripped too big. I mean, some people just go with a bigger screw. Some people put wood glue, paper, anything to fill the hole and make it a little tighter. I like to use some wood filler. Put a little wood putty in the hole. And a little wood glue on my screw. And it's enough to make it tight. If you just use the wood putty, when you take it out the first time, it's crumbly enough that the hole's right back where it was. So if you put a little bit of wood glue on the screw, it tightens up the wood putty and makes it more solid. Alright, let's try to put the other screws in. I put these screws back in. There. Let's show you that. This was also messed up. These 2 screws were in, that one wasn't. The whole movement was shifted up and they made a separate hole in the top for some reason because the screws were stripped. So they wanted to be able to stand it up and take pictures to sell it. So I put it back in the original holes and made it straight again. It was a little bit cockeyed. Alright, I gotta go wash my hands. I'm gonna put the 4 screws in this and then try winding it, standing it up, see what happens. Alright, I've got the screws in. It's pretty solid. And this has been trying to turn. It's just about wound down, so it's not, but I'll put a couple turns on it. Got a pretty sound. It's not supposed to sound like that. because the little piece of leather in the end is missing. But I'd already bought some replacement leather for another clock, so I can cut a little piece off and stuff it in there. I think it's going to sound really pretty. And it shut off, which is nice. The movement's working, so let's stand it up and see what we've got as far as being in beat and running on the time side. Wow, this thing is big. Alright, let's see where... This is almost an outside desk job. It doesn't have my computer in the way. Because this is just surprisingly large, but I'm pleased. Alright, let's go this way. Turn the light a little bit. The older I get, the more light I need, so I'm trying to light everything up good so y'all can see it too. And you can have the occasional dog photo bombing over here. In case you didn't know, we have 8 dogs. We had 9. We breed Labrador retrievers and do hunting retriever trials with them. And then we also have a couple of pet dogs that are mixed breed, because I work with a rescue group also for our county. Looking good. Alright, so I've just got to figure out how this part, this coming down here, makes the day move. So, I know that this does something because when I moved it, the day turned a little bit. So, I am going to investigate so I can show y'all because I have no idea. I think it's the coolest thing ever. So the movement starts running, but it doesn't stay running. It's not quite in beat, and the foot is not level. It's bent up in the air, so I'm going to have to flatten this out and make it level to get it in beat. See if it'll come and run overnight. There, it's stopping again. So I've got to get this foot straight and get it in beat. So far what I've discovered is this is going to go up and down as this goes on a 24-hour cycle. This will raise one time, which is going to pull this whole mechanism up in the air. There's a little weight at the bottom to pull it back down. And then I'll take this off so you can see it better. Watch what happens when I push up on that weight like it's going to do when it pulls it up. Comes down, clicks off one day at a time. So the right hand little foot is deflected out with this little arm and makes it pull the wheel down that way, and the left hand part of this locks in the teeth so that it only does one day at a time. And I've gone all the way around with it, and on the 30-day months it does 30 clicks and then turns, and on the 31-day months it does 31. So the only part that's not working on this, it appears, is the day, as the hand is turning. It's going to go around on the numbers like it's supposed to. The month will turn there, but I've got to get the day showing up right here to change each day. But so far, I'm pleased with how well everything is working. Watch, here it goes to the next month. January. Earlier in the evening, I set the clock to the right time, and couldn't sleep because I'm not feeling that well. So I came down to see if, now that it was after midnight, if the day had moved, and it has. Yesterday was the 22nd, which was Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024. And so the hand was pointing at the 22, which was down there, and now it's pointing at the 23 and has clicked over to Thursday. I don't know if you can see that. The hand is there. It mounts right there. So the hand moved up a day, and the time and the little dial turned from Wednesday to Thursday. So the side is working. So I'm going to take it apart and try and investigate how it works. I've done a search of videos. There's nothing on a movement with a calendar 43 in it. So the only movement that I could find really described with the calendar mechanism was a Seth Thomas #1 calendar, and it had 2 arms coming down right here, one for each side that you could adjust separately. This has a single arm that you adjust that does both. So since I wasn't watching when it did it, I don't know what trips it or how to adjust it. So when I take it apart, I'll be investigating all that and posting that. I'm still playing with this clock, getting to know it before I take it apart. Everything seems to be working right, so I'm going to be slow about taking it apart. I want to get a lot of video about it. The weight that hangs down on the bottom of this, you can adjust manually what your date is by just pushing up on it from underneath. November has 30 days. It should skip to 1. And it does. There's shorter teeth back there on one video that I saw that makes it, there's a cam on the side here that clicks it over to the month, and on the months that have less days, there's a cam that holds it up a little bit higher so that the short teeth don't get counted. So if it's set right, it should skip over those days. So December will have all of the days. This appears to be a perpetual calendar because I've gone through it once already, and in February it actually went from the 29th to the 1st. So it even has the leap year built into it. So 31 and then 1. It didn't change. If you don't let it drop all the way on its own momentum, it doesn't always change. Okay, that's twice it didn't change. So it does need a little work done to it. I don't know if my paper's touching the dial. It might be keeping it from being able to turn. This should be February because it didn't change. So we'll see what it does on the 28th. It went to the 31st. It should have gone to the 1st. So it needs a little bit, well, it went from, yeah. So it went from the 28th to the 31st. So this arm that comes down from here, you can adjust up and down to get it to skip 1 day, 2 days, how many days it needs. So there's a little bit of adjustment I need to make on that. I've had the clock running for 3 days, and the only problem I found is keeping good time, and the calendar date hand is moving, but the little roll for the for the actual day. It did change one time from Wednesday to Thursday, but then it stayed on Thursday. I had to manually change it up to Saturday, so I don't think that roller's working, but that'll be what we'll work on. Make sure all of it's working right once I get all the information I need on how to work on it. I'm just beginning the troubleshooting on the calendar portion of the clock. Has been working well for a week or so, except this barrel is not turning. The month advanced from May to June like it was supposed to, and the days of the week turned like they were supposed to, but this is not turned. So I was able to get a book. I read on the NAWCC, someone asked a question, and there was this book mentioned, The Modern Clock, and it was published for the first time in 1905 and describes clock mechanisms, and it actually describes this Waterbury calendar clock inside of it, so that was good. This was the second edition of the book, released in 1950. They said get that one because some of the equations had been corrected in it. So I did, and I printed up the diagrams that were in the book and studied them to see what I needed to see, what the different parts were, how they worked. This little piece they're calling I, it's a cam on the front of the wheel that gets activated by this part going up and down, is very important, and that's what we're going to talk about. I have set this forward. This clock, I've noticed, it does not change at midnight. It changes at 10 p.m. So I've wound it forward so we can watch what it's going to do. As I've wound it forward, this, what they're calling a retaining click. No, they're calling it the descending spring pawl. This little, I don't know, it's got a little lip right there and a little beak right there. It's going to hit on this little retaining clip, and it push it out of the way and let it push the teeth down as it goes on around. So watch that part right there while I turn the hands. We should be close to it dropping. Okay, so it drops, it brings that forward one click. They say any adjustments that you're going to make need to be made between midnight and noon. So that's why I advanced this around for it to click, because if it's already past noon, which the clock thought it was, this will be too high to drop all the way and make your adjustments. So we know it's at its lowest point right now. So now we can make adjustments to it, no problem. So this is what they're saying to watch closely, this eye-shaped piece right here. Let me see if I can zoom in on that a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to push this up. This is what gets slowly raised with the cam on the back of your time movement. This little rocking back and forth cam keeps it from just advancing more than it's supposed to. It's going to catch on the tooth back there when it drops down and let it just go one tooth. So everything that makes it a perpetual calendar is this funky little shaped piece right here that's attached to the wheel. Because I'm going to take this down apart and show you the insides of this in a minute, and you're going to see that it moves this up and keeps the cam from being able to catch on the wheel and lets it advance extra days. That's what makes it a perpetual calendar. I've advanced it to the end of the month. Let me zoom back out so you can see something here. So I've advanced this around to the end of the month. So I wanted you to see how it skips. Try to watch. Oh, okay, it just did it. I didn't point soon enough. This lifted up, kept the little arm from being able to interact, and it skipped because we were on June, only has 30 days, so it skipped to the 1st of July. It went from the 30th of June to the 1st of July. So I'll show you that again. All right, I've advanced it to September, and you'll notice this little top of this lever, the cam, they're calling it a cam on this wheel. The top of this cam is what interacts with this little pivoting arm. Now watch as it goes around. As the days of the month go around, you'll see the shape of it. It's kind of eye-shaped at the top. It's got a spring on it right there that's putting pressure. And then coming up, make sure that you can see it out of that. If you can see this little arm that's coming up right here, watch as this comes around. You see that little arm right there? That little arm is what interacts with the levers on the side of this that tell it the months. So if it's in between here, you're going to have all 31 days click off. If it hits on one of these arms, it lifts up the other end of that and pushes this up and lets it skip 2 days from the 30th to the 1st. And then there's a special cam, which you can see right here, which is February. Some calendars, like the Ithaca and the Seth Thomas, I believe they have an individual February wheel attached to the front of the 30 to 1 wheel cams. And they have one tab that's bigger than the others. This one just has one February tab attached with all the other tabs, but it's made of 2 levers. So this back piece of the lever can slide behind it and make it narrower on the leap year. So 3 years in a row, it'll be the full width, and it'll lift up and it'll make it skip from the 28th to the 1st, from February 28th to March 1st. But the 4th year, this part of the cam slowly moves behind this part, and that makes it narrower, so it does the 29th of February, and then it'll skip to the 1st. But anyway, we're going to go around and watch it skip from September 30th to October 1st. Okay, so here it comes, that little eye-shaped piece. It's going to push up on the back side of this little retaining clip and keep it from being able to click into the next hole. Right here. See how it pushed up enough to make it skip 2 teeth? And now we're in October. So, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November's 30 days. Anyway, as far as setting this calendar, what I have read in the book is that you push up and down on this and advance your days of the week, and then you, while you're holding this up, you push this up and it releases that, and you can hand turn this to whatever day you want to, and then you release it in both. That's as far as I've gotten right now. I've got to figure out what is not interacting to move my day calendar. So I will check that out and let you know. Be back in a minute. I've taken a Sharpie and marked at the top and the bottom of this adjusting screw, because I'm going to take this whole mechanism out, how high this lifts. This is all attached to the cam, to a lever that's behind here that I'll show you in a little bit. But this is where you adjust how high this mechanism lifts. You only want it to lift high enough to change the date. So it's very important, if your clock is not keeping good time, it's putting too much load on it because it's trying to lift too high. You want the bare minimum of it lifting. You only want it to lift just enough to go in that groove. See, it could go way up there. It doesn't need to go way up there. It only needs to go right to there, and it's heavy enough to make it change. So, I just wanted to show you I'm marking that. I'm going to unscrew this, take these screws out, take the mechanism out so I can look down in here. The part that's not letting my time advance is this little arm that's way down in here, and I can't really see it from looking from the front, so I'm going to take this time piece out, the calendar piece out. So with the mechanism in this position, I think I've already found what my problem is. This is my diagram out of the book that I blew up giant size so I could figure out what was what. There's a tooth on the side of my day of the week cylinder, and it has 14 teeth on it, and the days of the week repeat one time, so that it was about the same size as the calendar one, because there's 12 on here and there's 14 on there. So that's the only reason that they made it 14 teeth around. This little piece S is the little pawl that clicks it forward. When this is the long piece here, sideways. So when this weighted piece goes up and down, this little piece here, T, is supposed to go out and back and out and back and ratchet this little piece S right here. So looking at mine, when this goes up and down, there's no pressure. Here's that little lever T that's supposed to be advancing it. There's no pressure on it. And here's my spring. My spring's on the wrong side. Here's the little bar that's supposed to have a spring on it. So if I move my spring over there, I think that's going to give that power again, and my days of the week are going to turn. So that's what we're going to try. I don't know how it got put over there, but we're going to try it on the other side of the lever and see what happens. Yes, that's all it was, as simple as that. The spring was on the wrong side. It's still not putting much pressure. It is, I guess. It's inside this hole. So I thought it needed to be against that bar, but there's actually a little gap right there, and it's inside the gap and making it push back out. It's making it push out when I push this in and grabs the next set of teeth and pulls it forward. Pushes that little cam out of the way, and there. That was an easy fix. Alright, now that it's fixed, I do want to talk about this side a little bit too before I clean it up some. I wanted to show you the other side of the days of the week cylinder when this weighted piece is being lifted and dropped. That's the little piece they're calling S in the book. Comes out and lets one notch advance on the cam. It's got a little bit of corrosion in there. Not much. A little bit of something coming off. It looks like paper. It was a little piece of paper. Probably these papers have been replaced at some point, and this is an old one that kind of fell apart in there. So yeah, I am gonna clean it at some point. From this side, it's easy to see this wider February notch. Let's see if we can make the months move. Notice this is turning. This is kind of a, what do they call it? Let's see. I'll try to call it the same thing, so if y'all get that book, you'll know what it's talking about. Okay, the diagram of the day of the month cylinder. They are calling this little piece P a screw track, or a worm, they're calling it. So this little screw track turns slowly as the days are turning. You see it turning, and then boom, when it turns far enough, that little lever can fall down the back side of it. When that lever falls down the back side of it, it hits and lets it go to the next month. I don't know how accurately it's going to work with me having it laying on its back, but I just wanted to click it through some to see. that lever's not coming back up where it's supposed to. Okay, like so. So that little lever stays hanging down until it gets to the back side of this little worm or screw track, and it slowly brings it back up. It's going to fall off, and it's going to hit one of the levers on the month. And advance the month. Boop. Alright, I have set this all the way around to February. I want to click through and let you see the leap year function. This little guy, this arm is just coming around. It's going to hit back here. I hope there's enough light in there to see that. It's going to hit back here on this February cam when this gets around to here and make it jump days. So when you're setting this up, you have to go to when what I just showed you, the February cam, is the smallest, the little back lever. The little lever is behind the, there's actually two levers there, and one is behind the other one, and they will slip together for the leap year. So when setting this back up, find when it skips the extra 3 days, when the February little tab is narrower than normal. It should be wide because it should normally be skipping 3 days. I took the dial papers off. They just are self-adhesive, which makes me think they've been replaced because they wouldn't still be sticky after this many years. This the back of this clock says, because it was a perpetual calendar, when the directions were printed, they always printed the year that the calendar was made so that you would know where to advance the time to for the leap year function to work properly. So the back of the clock said 1910. So anyway, this may be from then because it's not sticky anymore. Somebody had put some glue on it, but this one's still gummy, so it's probably one you can order to replace, which is fine. It works well. I've cleaned this out a little bit, the movement, with a little brush, some cleaning solution, rinsed it out good, blew it dry, just to make sure everything was working as well as possible. I just want to run this around some for people that need to see how this mechanism moves. That book that I ordered, The Modern Clock, says that this little piece attached to this count wheel back here is the most important piece. So to understand what the little arms of it do and the springs and things, that's the most important part. That little arm is coming around. It's going to hit one of these longer teeth and make the calendar go forward. If it hits a long tooth, it skips days. If it doesn't hit a long tooth, it just goes forward one day. And you'll see this little cam, follow this little worm screw around and advance the calendar for a month if there's not any days to skip. And then if there are days to skip, they match up with these longer teeth and this little arm that's coming around. When these two, the long teeth and this little arm come together, is when you have the days that skip. So because I've taken the paper off, I don't really know where it goes on these wheels. I'm going to put it back on and figure out what month I'm at. That's my February cam. So this should be April right there. So we're going to try that and see. I'm going to put a little glue on here. Alright, so I said that that is my, I might have to let this dry with a rubber band on it for a little bit before we do any more. February, April. Alright, let me glue both of these back on and let them dry. I'm looking at this under my magnifier. I went with a little Velcro to hold the thing while it's drying, but this is the first swab I went through this with after I had cleaned it with a little bit of ammonia solution. I didn't clean it much with ammonia solution because I could tell that this was painted on brass, so I mostly just went over these parts and rinsed it with water and blew it dry with a hairdryer, but I'm going over it with a swab, and I'm finding places that were oiled. The calendar clocks were not meant to be oiled. They move very slowly once a day, so there's not a lot of friction. So you oil it, and that's great for, you know, what, a week, a month, 6 months. You've decreased the friction and everything's working great, and then it starts gumming up. It starts grabbing dust and making the mechanism harder to turn. And I'm mostly finding it on this time side. Whoever had it before when the time side didn't work thought they should oil it, and maybe that would make it work. But I've just about gotten it all out. Kind of tore up my wheel a little bit. This little arm's coming around. It's going to fall off of that worm pin. Yep, I bumped something. There we go. And the month turns. So to set the clock, what I was telling you was you push up on this weight and you push up on this lever, and this is what it does. It pushes this half of this cam up so that it doesn't engage in the teeth anymore, so that you can then turn it wherever you want. So when this dries a little bit more, I'm going to show you how to set it for the month and day. I have advanced this side by pushing up the weight and pushing up the sprocket and turning the hand until the February tab is coming around. And this is the smallest I've seen the February tab. That little extra lever is completely behind the wide lever that's February. So this would be my leap year. So when this drops down, I know I'm at March 1st. Okay, let's try it activated. When you stand this up, it acts differently. So don't forget to pull this back down, because if it's still up, it's going to inactivate your thing from working up there. So I'm going to push this till I see it change multiple days. One day at a time. Let me just put a pin in that so it doesn't fall out. And I have no idea where it is on there. I just stuck it on there. But I'm watching in the back. Okay, so this is coming around and it is about to engage. No, I think we might have another month to go before it engages. Yes, so that was still January. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Okay, I counted wrong, but there it was. So it skipped from February 29th to March 1st right there. So now I know which paper to put in my window, and I can advance the calendar to today's date, because this is a leap year, so I'm on the correct year. If this wasn't a leap year, you'd have to find leap year and then go forward 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years until you were on the correct year for the year you're setting the clock. So I wanted to show you this part of the movement now. I haven't wound it in about a week, so you can see it's unwinding. This is the extra wheel on the front that controls your calendar. It's got twice as many notches as this. This should have 12. I haven't counted them. It looks like there's more than 12. And this should have 24, so that when it goes around one time, this arbor goes all the way through to the back plate. So I'm going to take this movement out. We're going to flip it over so you can see the back side and what it looks like and how it activates. So here's the back side of that cam. I've just taken off the leader wire and turned it over. So over 24 hours, it slowly turns, come around to here, and at midnight it falls off. And that lets the weight drop and actuates the calendar one day. The count wheel at the bottom of the calendar controls the month. This just controls the day. I'm going to have to take this all apart and clean it. It's pretty gunky. I want to show you one thing that's on here that is not being used. This little curly cue in this lever is supposed to have a wire that comes down from it so that you can set the set the time correctly. If your hands are incorrect, you're supposed to be able to push that wire up and lift that lever and make it count off till you get to the right time. And the reason that's important is once you find where 12 o'clock is, where it falls down, that's when you put your hands on. And then you bring this count wheel around to 12 o'clock with this little lever right here. So, someone has done some repairs here. I see some solder on my spring. It looks like maybe the spring wasn't staying on the click, so they just soldered it on there. They soldered about as well as I do. It's not great, but it works. Anyway, overall, it's not super clean. I'm going to put my spring clamps on here and take the pressure off so that I can see how much end shake I've got, because I have a feeling I'm going to have to do a few pivot holes. A few bushings are needed. It's been running without any problem, but while I've got it all apart, I may as well do the bushings. Alright, I've got my spring clamps applied, and I have let down the power from the spring into the spring clamps. with my letdown tool that I made from a broom handle. Put a slot in it, you drill a hole in it, make sure you've got room for an extra piece of key if you have an extra piece of key, and you have a letdown tool. I put on there, move my click out of the way, and slowly let this down until all the pressure's on the spring. Clamp, not the spring itself, the spring clamp. So I'm ready to start taking this apart. Wow, that's really tight. This one didn't quite have all the power out, as you can see. But you can get a good idea of how it works. "12 o'clock coming up." Boop. And then as the day goes by, so they say to set it between 12 and noon because otherwise you're halfway lifted up and your weighted lever can't drop all the way. Almost done. It's probably still going to slip and pop a little bit when I take these screws out. When I wound this side, it would catch a little bit. I'm going to have to check the spring over here. They may just need to be greased. Okay. Feels like there's another screw holding it. I bet there is. I bet that cam holds something together. I'll need to take this off before I can get the plates apart. It's riveted on the front, so I need to remove it from the back. There's a pin through it, I can see. Let's see where the other, oh, there it is. They bent it like an S. And I'm going to take this lever off while I'm back here. Now it lets me see where the fifth screw was. That's why it wasn't coming apart. A lot of oil on this thing. It's just floating on parts of it. So your escapement wheel usually stays in because of this little hanger right here. So if you're very careful, you can get it out with all your pieces still intact, so you can see where they are. Yeah, very junky. Look at all that. Can you see that black stuff on the inside of it? So we're going to clean all of this. Lots of greasy looking stuff. So we are going to clean all that up. And then we will check and see if we need to redo any bushings. This is a pretty standard setup for any turn of the century American clock. So I'm not going slow and explaining all of it because I've done it in other videos. So I'll kind of explain as I put it back together. Okay. This is the stroke. This is the time. It doesn't matter as much on this clock. They both turn the same direction. Some clocks turn opposite directions. But yeah, very gunky. Someone oiled the heck out of everything, thinking oil made it better. So these will go off to the cleaning.